Hulk Hogan lived up to his name as he had an incredible body. However, Hogan did more than just eat his vitamins and say his prayers. In the early 90s, the Hulkster got busted for steroid use. Hogan would disappear from WWE following this, and when he returned, he was noticeably smaller than before. Despite this, Hogan still had a great physique that he kept for years. However, as he's gotten older, the Hulkster's begun to lose muscle mass. On top of that, his years of wrestling have affected his current health. Angle revealed on his podcast that Hulk Hogan had his nerves cut from his lower body, which make him unable to feel anything. Additionally, the 6-time WWE champion has to use a cane to help him walk. Luckily, Hulk Hogan has all his body parts. This next wrestler unfortunately lost a few. Before Hulkamania was running wild, superstar Billy Graham was the biggest name in wrestling. Thanks to his background in bodybuilding, Graham truly looked like a superstar. He would retire in 1987, and unfortunately, the superstar would begin a series of health battles. In 2010, Billy Graham was hospitalized with liver problems, and it was believed he'd only have 1 year to live. Things were so dark that he reserved a burial spot next to Eddie Guerrero. Thankfully, doctors were able to turn things around, but Billy Graham continued to have challenges with his health. In 2022, Graham had an infection that forced doctors to amputate some of his toes. In January 2023, it was reported that Graham was dealing with a bone infection. On top of that, he has gone completely deaf and is currently in intensive care. Lex Luger was the living definition of a bronze god. Luger was a bodybuilder before debuting in WWE, which gave him one of the best physiques in all of wrestling. Even as he got older, Lex still had a very good body, but a freak accident would alter Luger's life. While on a flight, Luger had difficulty moving his neck. When he tried to adjust himself, things became worse and ended up suffering temporary paralysis. It was later found out that Lex had pinched a nerve and cut off his blood flow. After spending roughly a year in a hospital bed, Luger's health would improve. He was eventually able to walk on his own and able to drive himself. However, Lex's health would start to deteriorate. He began needing a wheelchair to move around, and by 2021, the former WWE star was completely unable to walk on his own. Physically, Luger bared little resemblance to his wrestling days. However, emotionally, he's much happier and more grateful than he was back when he was a WWE superstar. In his prime, fans would chant this at Scott Steiner. It's easy to see why they did it. The big bad booty daddy had an amazing body that was unrivaled. However, Steiner never failed a drug test, so it seems he was truly a genetic freak. Despite that, even Scott Steiner can outmatch age. Big Papa Pump is now in his 60s, and he's lost some of his size as a result of this. He also had a health scare in 2020 when Steiner collapsed backstage at an Impact Wrestling event. However, it was soon reported that Freakzilla was in good health. Even though he might not be as jacked as he once was, Steiner is still wrestling on the independent scene. This next wrestler, though, somehow got even bigger after leaving WWE. Ezekiel Jackson was called the personification of domination, and that was pretty accurate. The former Intercontinental Champion had muscles on top of muscles and had a physique that was on par with main event stars. Now the crazy thing is, he's actually gotten even bigger. Since leaving WWE, Jackson has become a personal trainer and is staying active in the gym. His arms have become the size of tree trunks. Ezekiel doesn't wrestle anymore, but if he ever decides to return, his body will be ready. This next wrestler, though, will need some training first. Despite only being in WWE for less than 4 years, Ahmed Johnson made an impact. This is thanks in part to his unbelievable physique. In 1996, Johnson made history by becoming the first African-American Intercontinental Champion. It seemed like Ahmed was on his way to being a main event star. However, due to family issues and allegedly some racial issues backstage, Johnson left WWE in early 1998. About a year later, Ahmed Johnson debuted in WCW. While he was still a powerhouse, Johnson had noticeably put on weight. This actually became an issue, and the former WWE wrestler was released from WCW because of it. Ahmed Johnson competed for a few more years until retiring in 2003. Since he's no longer an active wrestler, Ahmed is not in in-ring shape and looks incredibly different compared to his days as a WWE superstar. Jesse Ventura had such an amazing body, it was literally in his name.
Jesse the Body Ventura!
Take a look!
Ventura wrestled for about 10 years before retiring in the mid-80s due to blood clots doctors found in his lungs. Apparently, it wasn't wrestling, but actually Ventura's earlier job that caused the blood clots. Before WWE, Jesse Ventura was a Navy SEAL diver and served in the Vietnam War. During that time, Jesse was exposed to the infamous Agent Orange chemical, and Ventura believes that is what caused his lung condition. Regardless, this put an end to his wrestling days, and Ventura became a commentator before leaving wrestling altogether. together. Due to a combination of old age and no longer being an active competitor, Jesse doesn't have the same body he once had. However, the former wrestler is still active and in good health. Unfortunately, some active WWE wrestlers were not in the best of shape and ended up getting fired because of it. To see who they are, watch the video on screen.